Yeah, today I'll be interviewing my dad for school. It's social studies, well, world studies, too. It's a local history project. My words are not wording right now. The local history project. Okay, so Dad, what is your family backstory?
So my dad is Hungarian. Both of his parents were born in Hungary and emigrated to the United States. My mom is Portuguese, and both of her parents were born in Portugal and emigrated to the United States. They met in New England and ultimately got married. So I'm essentially half Hungarian and half Portuguese.
Where does your last name like originate from?
My last name is Hungarian. It's not spelt like a Hungarian last name because when my grandfather came, they spelt the name more phonetically, and he didn't understand what they were writing down, so it got misspelled from the original Hungarian, but it's a Hungarian last name.
Okay. That's the family background. Okay, let's move on to the early childhood. What was like your least favorite elementary school teacher?
My least favorite elementary school teacher, um, it was probably Mrs. White. She was my homeroom teacher for sixth grade, and she just was not. Um, she just was a very stern woman who never took any excuses or anything like that. So she was very, very strict, more strict than most of the teachers at that time.
Well, what about your favorite elementary school teacher?
Um, Probably my second grade teacher, homeroom teacher. Um, she was very nice, and she listened and was able to draw your interest into school.
What's your least favorite sub? What was your least favorite subject in subject? What was your least favorite subject in elementary school and why?
Um, it would have been math, which was pretty much my worst or my least favorite subject all throughout school, and mostly because I just found it more difficult than anything else, and I struggled with math.
Okay, what's your favorite subject?
Well, that would have been science.
No.
Science has always been my favorite subject throughout school. Although I did like pretty much everything else. I really liked geography. I really liked history.
Did you like
So,
art?
Um, I did like art. Yes.
You're really good at art. You don't give yourself enough credit. Okay, let's go to the middle and high school years. What was it the middle school and high school like for you?
So I think it was a fairly, ordinary experience. Transitioning from elementary school to, we called it junior high, and it was just seventh and eighth grade. In high school, I was, a good student. I did play ice hockey for a lot of that. That was the only sport I participated in. Um, Again, I was a good student. I did work a job for all of my high school years to make to make money, and comparing high school for me and is a little bit different, because when I was in high school, we took home economics, and I took we had to do typing on a typewriter. There was no such thing as a computer.
I remember in the first year when I was a freshman, I had this teacher who would let me type on a typewriter, and it was really fun.
Yeah, it might have been, but when you have to type everything on a typewriter, and you didn't do anything on a computer, so we didn't have a smart board, we didn't have tablets or computers or anything like that, so we carried around books that we had a cover with old paper shopping bags. We had to make book covers out of them, and we had to carry our books everywhere, all of them, because we had homework every night, and a lot of homework, a lot more than what I see now.
Thank
And-
goodness we don't get that much homework.
And everything was on paper. There was no computer to upload it into, or so you had to bring home the homework assignment on paper and the book, and do the assignment at home. There was you didn't do your homework at school. So, but it was otherwise it was I think a fairly ordinary high school experience.
Well, during this, I heard the Cold War was also going on. Do you have any memories about the Cold War, anything
I
like that?
remember seeing things on the news, but it never really seemed to affect everyday life. The one thing that I do remember very well was the Winter Olympics in, I believe it was 1980. We're in Lake Placid, New York, and the U.S. Hockey team ultimately was playing the Russian team for the gold medal, and the U.S. team was not expected to be very good, and the U.S. and Russia obviously did not like each other, and the Russian team was by far the best hockey team in the world, and was considered unbeatable, essentially. The Russian Olympic hockey team had played a game against the NHL All-Stars and annihilated them 8-1. And those are professional hockey players from America, and the U.S. won that game, and that was a very striking memory of that time, and it brought forth the idea that we were enemies with Russia more than anything else at that time.
Oh, jeez. Well, back to school topic. What was college like for you?
So college was again good. It was different. Obviously, you had a lot more freedom, and it was really more up to you. Your parents weren't there. Your parents didn't get your grades. They didn't have to sign any forms, or if you failed a test, your parents had to sign it. You had to bring it home, and your parents had to sign that they saw it. And there was of course, there's none of that in college. It's all really up to you, and you have to kind of self-motivate, and that's a big change. And even I probably struggled a little bit, getting used to motivating myself to
It's like that today.
know,
I'm screwed.
getting myself up in the morning and getting ready for class and all that stuff. But it's a great experience. You make some great friends, and
I need friends.
there's a great social scene, and it's totally different from.
Is there less bullying in college?
There generally is, yes.
Thank goodness, I'm sick and tired of that stuff.
Uh, so, but the classes obviously get harder every year, but generally you get to pick a major so that ultimately most of the classes are in a subject that you like and are interested in, so it's easier to study for. But there are a lot of distractions, and you do have to have some discipline in if you want to do well in college.
Okay, so how did you prepare? How did you prepare for your career?
So after college, I knew I wanted to do something in the sciences, and I had debated about going to graduate school and getting a PhD in one of the sciences, or going to medical school, and I was afraid that since I got off to a little bit of a slow start in college, that I wouldn't be a good enough candidate for medical school. So I did go to graduate school. I went to Indiana University, which was a huge change because I went from a small Catholic college 20 minutes from where my parents lived to a huge university 1,000 miles away. So
Oh, geez.
that was a huge change, but I did go to Indiana University and got a master's degree in molecular biology. And then I did decide to go to medical school, and wound up going to medical school at Indiana as well. So I was there in medical school for 4 years, and then decided to I had to decide on a specialty in medicine, and I decided on orthopedics, and I applied for different residency training programs, and ultimately got matched with a training program in Detroit, and the orthopedic training program was 5 years. And then after that, I did a 1-year fellowship, and then I was off on my career. So after I finished my residency, technically my first job was I stayed at the hospital where I trained doing general orthopedics. And then after 2 years of that, I decided to do a fellowship in a subspecialty. So I did a year of that at the Medical College of Wisconsin in Milwaukee. And then my first job in that specialty was at Penn State University in Hershey, Pennsylvania. In the medical
Is it
school.
true that Hershey smelled like chocolate?
Downtown Hershey does smell like chocolate, yes.
Ooh.
And all the street lamps are Hershey's Kisses.
Sounds amazing. Imagine just waking up to the smell of chocolate.
Yeah, I don't know how they do it, but it does smell like chocolate downtown.
You know how earlier you were talking about how like you didn't have all computers and stuff like that? At what age and like what time did you actually start using computers and phones on a daily basis?
So there were some computers in college.
But weren't those like the big clunky ones? Like
They were big, but they were personal computers. They weren't very sophisticated, and there was no internet at that time.
Ugh.
Because the internet hadn't been invented yet. the internet was invented by actually a group of scientists in California to link the University of California schools together, and then ultimately that became the World Wide Web, so the internet.
Oh, geez.
And then when I got to graduate school, there was more sophisticated computers than the internet. And then certainly when I was by the time I got to medical school, there were more sophisticated computers with the internet. But even then, the internet was not as easy to get onto as it is now. Now you just get on the internet, but then you literally had to dial in through a telephone line, and sometimes it could take a long time to connect if there was a lot of people trying to call in to get their internet access. So it's not nearly as good as it is now. 4G and 5G are kind of revolutionized how you can connect to the internet.
5G plus.
As far as cell phones, I didn't have any cell phones even in college. Probably cell phones didn't really come out, as far as I can remember, until maybe the 1990s. But the first cell phone I had was actually a phone that was in a bag. Like it literally looked like it was like a phone, and it was in a bag. It was absolutely nothing like the phones that are out now. Those were the first cell phones that were available, and all they were phones. So the first cell phone was not a smartphone like there are now. It was just a phone, and it was in a bag, and it had a limited lifespan, and you had to charge it. So that was probably in the 90s when I got my first cell phone. And then I think Apple is with their first iPhone was the one who really revolutionized the smartphone. And I've had an Apple ever since. I did get the first Apple, and I've had Apple ever since. But I did get there was a flip phone in there somewhere too.
Flip phone.
Between the phone and the bag and the iPhone, there was a flip phone.
We're both stumbling over our words now. Flip phone. Flip phone.
So not until I was an adult, really, like getting out of medical school, did I have a phone.
Okay. I have a couple more questions left. What were you doing during 9/11?
So on 9/11, I was. That was during that period where I was doing general orthopedics. I was actually doing surgery at the Fairlane Medical Center, which was part of the Henry Ford health system that I trained at. And then I had clinic in Livonia, which is a little bit, maybe a 20-30 minute drive from Dearborn, Michigan. And I was doing a case in the morning, and the nurse came in and said, oh my gosh, a plane just flew into the World Trade Center, and of course we just thought it was some small plane just by accident flew into it, and then it became clear over the next several minutes as the nurse kept coming in that this was a terrorist attack, um, and I will say that um, that was a very, very scary time because there was a lot of misinformation. We were also told that a plane was headed for the Renaissance Center in downtown Detroit, and Detroit was on complete lockdown, and it was pretty scary. Now that obviously didn't happen, but it was very, very nerve-wracking, and there was a lot of tension amongst the other surgeons and OR personnel at the time for a variety of political reasons. But I do remember, and I'll say that Dearborn, Michigan, where I was, has the highest population of Arabic or Muslim people in the world outside of the Middle East. So it was a very scary drive out of Dearborn to drive to Livonia in the afternoon. But that whole day, I just went home and just watched the news the entire night. I never really went to sleep. I was just so anxious and about what was happening or what might happen, and that was a very, very scary day.
Okay, I have one more question before I close this off. Where were you during the Oklahoma City bombing, and how did you feel about it?
Oklahoma City bombing. Yeah, I mean that was. Yeah, I was in school at the time, and that was just something that, again, I couldn't conceive of a domestic terrorist. That just was never anything that people talked about. That was never really on the news. I know that there was the FBI had raided a couple of compounds by these pseudo-militarist, anti-government people, one in Ruby Ridge in Idaho and one at Waco. And so I was aware that there were these anti-government groups out there, but I never dreamed that there would be a terrorist attack like that. So it did kind of wake you up that that we're vulnerable even in our own country. And there was a lot of activity that happened to try to get a handle on these domestic terrorist groups. Unfortunately, then not that many years later, 9/11 happened, and the entire focus turned to international terrorists. Which again was a very, very eye-opening experience, and obviously life has never been the same since that happened. But that opened up a whole nother world of possible attack that really made you feel kind of unsafe no matter where you were. So both of those were very kind of scary, eye-opening experiences that have definitely changed, I think, the way Americans, feel about their safety and the world. All right, is that it?
Mhm. Well, guys, that's all we have for today. But thanks for your time, Dad.
Sure, anytime.
Well, like and subscribe for more stuff like this. And Dragon Entity out.